Hello everyone, welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood Podcast. In today's episode, we are discussing and reviewing Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Hello everyone, this is your Friendly Neighborhood Podcast. I'm Kyle Swope, and joining me today is my guest host. This is Caleb Russell, okay? Today we are discussing and reviewing Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. A few things before we dive into it. One, allergies are bad right now. Therefore, I might sound a little nasally. I'm going to try not to be like mucusy the whole time, but we'll see. So apologies in advance if you hear that, if it sounds anything like that. The next disclaimer, the next exciting thing is for those of you guys who may have missed it, we are now on Rumble. Therefore, go check us out on Rumble. It's fantastic. You can listen to the whole full podcast episodes there. We greatly encourage that. We think Rumble is a great platform. We'd like to really help get the ball rolling and get that platform to become a big competitor, I guess. So anyways, that's kind of it for me. Caleb, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Fantastic. So Caleb is probably, I would go as far to say, maybe our biggest podcast fan so far. Caleb's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a good while. We geek out a lot. We both have very strong opinions on stuff. So, yeah. I'm really excited for this episode, having Caleb on, because I think we're both going to be able to talk really passionately about our points of views. And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting episode. The topic was actually chosen by Caleb. I let him do that. I usually try to let the guests do that unless there's something I really want to talk about and reach out to someone and be like, hey, you want to talk about this with me? Because if you watched the State of the Podcast we did, I mentioned I didn't watch Wakanda Forever because I didn't care for the first Black Panther, and I didn't have any real desire to see this one. We're going to dive more to the opinion aspect later, but first I'm going to give Caleb an opportunity to talk a little bit. I've been talking for the past, 2 minutes now. So, Caleb, want to introduce yourself?
But yes, as Kyle said, my name is Caleb Russell. I've been listening to the podcast for quite a while now. I've known Kyle really long time. How long it's been? Is it about 5 years or so?
It's
been probably longer than 5 years.
Yeah. So we met at Good News Camp, of course, because his dad is it the director? Is that the term?
Yeah, he's the director.
The director of Good News Camp. Great guy, Dr. Dan. So we met through that, and then we kind of got reconnected when I started going to another Bible study. So I got reconnected with Caleb then and there, and that's when we started geeking out a lot. And right around that time is also when I started doing the podcast. So I've been a big fan. It's been great. But are you ready to talk about the Wakanda Forever?
Yes, I'm ready to talk about Wakanda Forever.
Great. So first question. Caleb, I think I know your answer to this already, but did you like the movie?
Yes, I did like it. So yeah, start out by saying, I really liked it when I watched it in theaters. I think it is the second best Phase 4 movie. I think Spider-Man No Way Home is the number 1 Phase 4 movie. But I would say this is the number 2 Phase 4 movie. And I would argue that it's one of 3 Phase 4 movies that's actually good. The third one I would say is Shang-Chi, but I know we've had our disagreements with that.
Yes, we have talked about that.
So I won't bring that up here. But yeah, I would say those 3 are the top 3 Phase 4 movies. And everything else is like mid or below or just garbage.
Okay.
So that is my Phase 4 take, but yes, really liked Wakanda Forever. Should I do deeper thoughts on Wakanda Forever now or save it for later?
We'll hold on to that thought. In the meantime, I'll answer the same question I asked you. Did I like the movie? So, just a disclaimer. I literally just finished watching the movie maybe 2 hours ago, so it's still really fresh, and I may have not cooked up all my opinions per se yet. I'll probably have a bunch of half-baked ones that I'll think of as we're talking. But no, I did not like the movie. Now, hear me out for a second. I still think I liked it better than the first Black Panther movie, but still it was, how do I describe it? There was a lot in it, and there was a lot of fat, I think. And I think we could have done so much better. We could have cut the runtime almost in half if we would have taken out so many plot points that didn't need to happen. And I'll dive more into that later. That's my first big initial thought. There's a few other things here and there I didn't like. I just thought there was not a lot, but enough to annoy me of virtue signaling and things like that. So anyways, yeah, that's my initial thoughts. But Caleb, where do you want to start off? I know you were getting ready.
All right, so yeah, just to clarify, so you said you did not like the movie overall?
No.
So, all right. So
I can say...
So on a binary rating system, it's a nay?
On a binary rating system, yes, it is a no. It's not good. However, but here's something I didn't say earlier, too, that I probably should, just for a disclaimer. I can say a lot of good things about this movie, but I can say just as many bad things, if not maybe even a few more bad things, which is why I think I didn't care for it.
All right.
Not to mention, I didn't like its first movie either, so not a whole lot of reasons for me to like it. But anyways.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to hear that, but I'm happy we'll get to discuss about it. So now a good time to ask, just where would you compare it on? I guess you could compare it to the MCU in general, but I'd say specifically Phase 4. Where...
Phase 4? I have to rank Phase 4 for that almost, and I don't think I've done that yet. Ant-Man and the Wasp was the first Phase 5 movie, right?
Yes. So...
Okay, because I haven't seen that one yet. I really want to, though. I'm just good, because then I think I've seen all of Phase 4, if I'm not mistaken. Movie-wise, anyways, not Disney Plus
Yeah, we
shows.
could get into the shows, but that makes everything more complicated.
I think the worst, easily, of Phase 4 was Love and Thunder.
Not Eternals?
No, but I think Eternals... Here's the hard part, okay? So Love and Thunder, I think, would definitely be on the bottom, because too much of a good thing. We never really talked about that, and I'll save that for maybe another review. But moral of the story, I did talk about that in State of the Podcast, so I'm thinking about that. But moral of the story, too much of a good thing. It was, I don't know, it was, how should I describe it? In fact, I can't really think of many ways to describe it, but it took the things that were good because it made things a little different and funny in the first Thor movie, and did nothing but that for like over 2 hours, and that was too much of a good thing. That's, I guess, the best, simplest way for me to say that. But then, I don't know, Shang-Chi and Eternals, I go back and forth on, especially now that time has gone on, too. I do believe I initially ranked Eternals higher than Shang-Chi. However, the more I thought about that, the more I realized maybe I would change that solely because Eternals is a lot longer. And so if I were to have to choose between which movie to watch, I probably disliked both of them equally, but I'd probably watch Shang-Chi just because it's shorter, quite honestly. So I guess I would put Eternals under that. I will say that there were more concepts and things that I thought were more interesting and exciting in Eternals than Shang-Chi, but also 3 hours, and I don't want to do that. Here's the movie I didn't see a Phase 4. I didn't see Black Widow, so I can't put that on there anywhere. And then we have, of course, No Way Home. We'll have Multiverse of Madness, and that's it. So that being said, if I were to rank them, excluding Black Widow because I haven't seen it, the bottom, Love and Thunder, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Wakanda Forever, I guess, Multiverse of Madness, No Way Home. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay. But anyways, so that's my ranking. So again, like, I don't know. I guess out of all the Phase 4 movies I've seen, the only two that I liked were Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home, which is very sad, actually.
That is sad.
But part of my problem with the MCU in general is the more I get into film, period, the more I dislike the MCU because a good movie should not set up... well, not that it shouldn't set up a sequel per se, but it shouldn't leave things to be answered in the sequel. And they also should be able to introduce all their characters and everything like that. Not as if you know them already per se. Now, in sequels, that becomes a little different. I think the rules for sequels are a little weird, and it's kind of unclear because people always say that, you know, all sequels are bad and that type of thing. But yeah, so I mean, in this movie, I feel like there are a lot of things you could have cut out and made the runtime significantly shorter. Let me tell you actually what I think would have made the movie really, really good, okay? So, beginning of the movie, T'Challa dies for mysterious reasons and stuff, which I thought was kind of lame, honestly. Then they go through the funeral, yada, yada, yada. Spoiler alert, too late. Anyways, and then there's that scene, and I really liked this scene because it laid this really fascinating concept down where she was at, like, the Queen. She was at like I think it was like UN or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about Wakanda and the vibranium and stuff. Meanwhile, one of the Wakandan, I don't know, ships or submarines, whatever the heck, was getting attacked by some type of soldiers from some country. Don't know which country specifically.
They're from France because
okay.
Which is weird. So France is evil in the MCU, or they want vibranium in the MCU and send paramilitary like mercenaries or whatever to go find them.
That is very out of pocket for France.
So it's really weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know enough about France to give strong opinions on it, but yeah, France is evil in the MCU.
That is so weird to think about. France is evil.
Added to the list of things in the MCU that exists.
Yeah. So anyways, evil France, they show up and stuff. And I think if the movie was about them dealing with struggling now that their king and protector was gone and all these foreign enemies trying to come in and steal the vibranium, I think that would have been a far more interesting concept than what they gave us with Namor and the underwater people. I forget the name of. Yeah. However, the one thing I will say, if I were to take that idea and make it complete, okay, I think it'd be really cool. And I know the MCU hasn't set this up by any means yet. If the primary bad guy in that concept I just made up based on that thing at the beginning of the movie, if that's what the movie was about, it'd be really cool if the primary bad guy, the bad country, was Latveria and the villain was Doctor Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, I think, would make a lot of sense. And, we'd see Doctor Doom is amazing, first of all. But we'd see all that good stuff. And, yeah, I just think that'd be really awesome concept. And I think if they would have done that, I would have thought, wow, this is probably, like, almost blowing me away. The Namor stuff was kind of boring. And that's the problem with the first Black Panther, too. I just thought it was boring. And this one, even, again, the runtime was like, I think on Disney Plus, it was like 2 hours and 43 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I was planning on watching this movie, like, this past Monday night. And I sit down, I'm like, holy crap, this thing's almost 3 hours? I'm not going to be able to get this finished tonight. So I watched the first, like, 45 minutes or so, and then I finished it today. So, yeah, there was that. That's my kind of rabbit trail idea. I don't want to do all the talking, like I said.
That's all right.
So,
I've got 2 points. So the first one is, I do think that's a really cool idea, but I do want to give a defense to the movie. We kind of did this in the first one, though. I guess it's only Killmonger who goes in. He doesn't steal the vibranium, per se. He technically becomes ruler, so it's not really stealing, but we kind of explored this idea in the first one, so I'll give a defense for that. Second plot, this actually reminds me of a rumor, which could be outdated by who knows when, but I'll say it anyway, about a supposed, on a rumor, a leaked plot about Captain America 4, whatever, but one of the rumors, unless it was confirmed, was that the plot was going to be about, the giant, aborted fetus in,
the aborted fetus
that's what my brother Jacob calls it, the giant aborted fetus in Eternals, that, it's going to be made out of possibly adamantium or some other material, and it's going to be about a bunch of factions fighting over it, which I think is an epic idea for a movie.
I think it's a great idea,
too. Weird for Captain America, but I don't know. I like free-for-alls in movies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Where we got giant factions and they just beat each other up. So yeah, if we just have like, I don't know, maybe 6 is too many, but if you just had an absurd amount of countries or other places, they go and fight over it.
Absolutely.
So that'd be my other defense. If that comes true, which I have no idea if it will, then we can forgive this movie more. But I still appreciate your point.
Oh yeah. Now let's pause. Hold that thought for a second. You mind scooting in or leaning?
I'm leaning back.
You're
lean
coming
forward
out of frame.
a bit. Yes,
there
you're right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, I don't know, if they do that in New Captain America, yes, I'm going to be really happy. I think it's going to be a really good idea. But yeah. I don't know. And here's another thing that they could have done without in this movie. Well, there are 2 big things they could have done without, and I think just completely trim the runtime down. Completely. This is, I guess, the more controversial one, but it's Riri Williams.
I knew you were going to say that.
First of all, I didn't like the character, okay? I've not read a single Ironheart anything or watched a single, because I know she's been in a few like cartoons at this point now. I haven't seen any. This is my first introduction to this character. I do not like this character. The reason why is because I hate people who are like, when you have a college student who's just the stereotype of being this like child prodigy is really smart. That's kind of annoying to begin with. It's very unoriginal. Plus the fact that she's so cocky and arrogant about it. That's exactly what I hate about Captain Marvel. And I'm like, okay, so I have literally no reason to like you as a character.
Yeah, they introduce her by she's like hustling a dude for money. So if I didn't know better, that's like how you introduce the villain of a movie, not the hero. Or it's like how you introduce Iron Man before he gets blown up by his own missile.
Yeah, exactly.
So this one, she has she becomes a better person by the end of the movie, but not really.
Yeah.
But not because of any consequences of hustling people.
Yeah, which is pretty lame.
So yeah, our good friend Colin, who's been on here before, does not like Riri in the comics and doesn't know a soul who does. So he thought it was really weird that they were putting her in the movie and giving her own future show, but...
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm glad you bring that up because I also share that same observation as Colin because, I've never... And I don't know a whole lot of people in person who read a lot of comics, especially like characters like Ironheart and stuff. But the people on the internet that I see talk about Riri Williams and Ironheart don't like her. So yeah, I feel like she's a character that they're kind of putting in our face, wanting us to like this character, but the character's not likable. So it's like, do something with the character to make him likable.
Not a super hot take, but she serves kind of the same purpose that America Chavez serves in Doctor Strange, where, granted, America Chavez is more important. She's being chased throughout the whole movie.
Well,
Riri Williams is being chased at the first act of the movie. That's not important anymore, but she just sticks around like you're in a video game. You got her as a playable character, and she sticks around, which is fine for a video game, but not in the movie.
Yeah. Well, but like America Chavez, though, like I liked America Chavez as a character because she actually had like personality, and I don't know. It's just I didn't mind seeing her. I thought she was a nice addition. I think again for the plot, she was essential to the plot, really. Riri Williams, though, was not. They could have put any generic scientist in there, and they didn't even need to have Ironheart or anything. At either, so we see I think they call it the Ironheart Mark 1 in that one scene. There's a big chase going on.
Yeah.
Like she didn't even need to really be in that chase. They could have just written out the air support stuff, and then everything else would basically more or less. I mean. Again, I just saw this. I don't remember every single thing that happened in that scene. But it'd be really easy just to remove that character from the whole thing. Just give Okoye in that car, whoever this generic scientist person was, do that, have them go off and do their thing. And then, the same plot can just all happen without her. And then in the final battle, again, you don't need to have Ironheart in that final battle. If you were to remove her from the whole sequence, nothing would change the plot. So, again, in my opinion, if it does not in any way form or change the plot, it does not need to be in the movie. So, yes. The other thing that I thought was just plain fat that needed to be trimmed was, and it's kind of sad because in this movie I really started liking, I forget the guy's name, but Martin Freeman's character, right? Who was in Black Panther and Civil War, right?
Yeah.
So, I thought it was kind of like, okay. He was kind of like a white bread character, in my opinion. Basically meaning that, he was just kind of bland. Like, he was just okay. I was starting to like him in this movie. However, the entire plot he goes through has nothing to do with it at all, except for that one time where they ask him that question about who the scientist was. Other than that, every single scene he was in didn't need to happen. I think there may have been that one part where he tells the Queen about what happened to Shuri. But those are the only... And they're just so small things you can very easily write around that. But yeah, so I mean... I don't know. And if you would have gotten rid of a lot of those elements too, you could have taken out a lot of the runtime in the movie, which was way too long if you ask me. But yeah. I've been bashing for a while. Actually, I'll let you, again. I talk, and then I don't... I want, like...
I appreciate it because I enjoy offering counterpoints, so I'm 2 points. So the first with Riri Williams. Yeah, I wouldn't say I like her, wouldn't say I dislike her. I'm pretty neutral. So so the first thing I want to say is I hate using the America Chavez comparison again, but what hurts Riri the most is that America Chavez, she's kind of in the movie, and we know she'll probably be in future stuff, but we don't feel like we're being marketed towards. Because Riri Williams, they announced Ironheart like shortly before Ironheart. I think it's a show right before
well, and Armor Wars she's going to be in.
That's true. So in this movie, every time she just showed up, she just felt like marketing or felt like plugging in for the sequel. So I think that just also made it rough, where she's not very important. And we just feel like we're being marketed towards, so I think those are points against her.
Yeah.
So the second point with Martin Freeman, he kind of just feels like he's in this movie because he's in the first one. He's a nice character, but... So my other point is, I do agree they should have less of him. I think what they should do is they should make him like Killmonger or something like that, where he shows up in one scene, and you give it like gravitas, so like the audience or whatever stands up and cheers when he shows up. He does something cool, then he just leaves, and then that's all he does in the movie. I don't think he needs to be... Main character is not the correct word, but he doesn't need to be a recurring character. Because the first scene where he shows up, it's kind of like that, where he's jogging in the woods. That's a scene where you can go, oh, cool, it's Martin Freeman from the first movie.
But you could have had that scene.
Just had that scene and then have him not show up ever again. I think it'd make his appearance better, whereas the movie thinks he's a main character when he doesn't have that much bearing on the plot. And every time he shows up, he just makes the plot go slower.
You could have that one cameo and then do that and then not be in the rest of the movie, and it wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, so I think that would just been better if they just give him a cool cameo, like what they do with Killmonger in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Definitely. I do want to get onto the things I like. It's like there are some things I did like in this movie. The first being the only new character they introduced in the first Black Panther that I actually liked was Shuri, who the movie stars and is mostly about because she becomes the Black Panther and stuff. So I enjoyed because she was, again, the only character I liked, really, from the first Black Panther. Seeing her shine. Plus, I think her character arc in this movie is very good. Especially because, she can't get over the loss of her brother. And then with everything that happens, she becomes very vengeful and angry. Which I always think that's maybe this is just what I like, but I like seeing that character arc. Because that happens a lot of times. Like, Batman kind of goes through that every now and then. But I don't know. I always find it interesting. It's like being vengeful, whether they stay vengeful all the time and bitter, or whether, like in this movie, vengeful and then they eventually come around and realize, no, I can't just kill all my problems and become this, like, bitter, nasty person. But yeah, so I liked that. I like how, at least for the time being, she's going to serve as the Black Panther. That's going to make me like the character a lot more, honestly. When someone says Black Panther now and they're talking about Shuri, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, nice. Not that I didn't like T'Challa, but T'Challa was just kind of... Like I mentioned Martin Freeman's character kind of being like white bread. I kind of felt T'Challa was kind of the same thing. It's like, you're like Captain America, but you're not Captain America. So it's almost like off-brand Captain America, I guess, if that makes sense. So we already have a character with that kind of mentality and morality in the MCU that it felt repetitive, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Shuri's completely different, and that's why I like her character so much better.
So yeah, I really like Black Panther in the first movie because he also goes through that vengeance arc, which I know a bunch of MCU characters do. I still like Shuri's, but it does have the problem where it's been done before. I like his vengeance arc. He serves as a bit of an anti-hero / antagonist at the beginning of the movie, but then he saves Zemo and learns his lesson. So it's nice that we moved to the Black Panther movie and he's had all this character development, but I don't like any of his development in the Black Panther movie. He has this bit of interesting development, but I don't think it's terribly interesting, especially not compared to Civil War.
And the thing is, too, if you see, like the end credit scene and everything, well, it's not really an end credit, it's a mid credit scene. There is no end credit scene. With T'Challa's son and everything, it's like, I wish so badly they would have shown all the things that what's his face? Well, what's her name? I can't remember.
I honestly can't remember her name. Is it Nadia? Is it something like that?
It's Nakia or something like that.
Might be Nakia.
I think it's something like that. Anyways, his baby mama. When she explains, it's like I would have loved to see that play out. How she gets pregnant. He thinks it'd be better to raise the son outside of the royalty in Haiti and stuff. And all that. Like, I wish they would have shown that maybe either in, like, Infinity War or the first Black Panther movie, where he's alluded to it. But, however, they probably wouldn't have done any of that if we didn't lose Chadwick Boseman. So that's probably why it happened like that. But I would have thought if they would have put that plot point in one of the other Black Panther movies, like, oh, okay, this is actually interesting. I actually care about what's happening here. But yeah. Now, villain-wise, you bring up Killmonger from the other one. and we had Namor in this one. I don't really care for either of them. Everyone keeps saying Killmonger's so great, and I'm like, okay, why is he so great? And I don't
because kind of everyone else in the first Black Panther movie is a wet blanket, but I'm just mean.
I guess.
I don't know. But yeah, Killmonger's number 1 in that movie. Andy Serkis is number 2 in that movie. Everyone else couldn't care about. So I can't remember. That's why I can't remember the War Dog's name, because she was kind of like the most forgettable character in Black Panther 1, and I like what they do with her in Black Panther 2, where she's in Haiti now doing work there.
Yeah.
Because watched Black Panther and Black Panther 2 to prepare for this content.
Oh, yeah.
For this, and I still can't really tell you what she does in the first movie, other than she's just like Sharon Carter in Civil War. She just exists. The movie goes up. Oh, this is his. I have no idea what she is in that movie, like a love interest or fiance or what.
Yeah, they don't.
So
really
they just tell us, and that's all she
Yeah.
does in the movie. She's just like, oh, this is his love interest. That's
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
She gets cool the chakram rings at the end, and those are epic, and that's about all she does.
Yeah.
Unless I'm terribly forgetting something.
I mean, I don't remember anything either, so you're probably good. So, anyways, though, like Namor as a villain, like I don't know, like the only thing really interesting about it is when looking at the backstory. Well, first of all, here's something I don't like. I'm sick of sympathetic villains. Okay, they make every villain try to be sympathetic nowadays. I think I might get a little. You might consider this conspiracy theory or not. I think they're just trying to push this rhetoric on people that like, oh, everyone is just misunderstood type of thing. Now, I'm not saying that's what they were entirely going for this villain. I'm just noticing this trend, and I think Namor is one of the people who falls under this trend. But the interesting thing I will say is when he's telling the backstory and everything, it's like they trade their reaction to seeing evil done in the world is more evil, because they go from seeing, like, I don't know what type of like slavery or like manual labor or whatever going on. They kill everybody, and then they automatically hate all the service people, which is really interesting. It's just kind of a concept I've kind of, I guess, been chewing on a little bit. So yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to say about it other than the fact that it's interesting. Because like I said before, I just finished watching this movie not too long ago, today. So I don't have a whole lot of really thought through opinions, if that makes sense. But anyways, you kind of get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want to say, don't agree with that take? First off, just watch Guardians of the Galaxy 3. The High Evolutionary exists.
But that's also why the movie was so good.
That's true, but Ronan is not a sympathetic in the first movie, and everyone hates him.
Well, that's just because he was boring.
That's true.
High Evolutionary was not boring.
No, I'm the biggest Ronan defender, but we will not talk about that now,
Okay.
so... That's the same thing. And they make Ego kind of sympathetic, but but he's also a villain. I feel like that's also done well.
Well, yeah, but that also works because he is the father of a main character.
That's true.
The estranged father of a main character.
Right.
So, and again, James Gunn is an artist. Okay, I'm so excited for his. I'm so excited for his DC content. I will defend him up and down, and a lot of people have been giving him flack. I think that flack's let up since they've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is something I don't think I've ever said out loud or done, but I've kind of predicted was going to happen. I was thinking they're going to see Volume 3, they're going to love it, and then they're going to stop hating on James Gunn, and I think that's happened. But anyways, I digress.
Oh yeah, one other point.
Yes.
So the second one is, if anyone should be a sympathetic character, I would say it's Namor, mostly because I haven't read any comics with him, but he's usually like an anti-hero or like a third party in comics. Mm-hmm. And they're setting them up at the end of the movie to do that, which I think is really cool, where he might show up again and he might assist the heroes when like King shows up or something like that, or he might just show up in another movie and help out the villains or whatever. So they have him set up for showing up in the future as a wild card, I guess you might call it, or like an anti-hero or whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so that's my defense, where I don't mind that he's a sympathetic villain in this movie, because I think it works with the source material, or at least what I'm familiar with the source material.
Yeah,
So that's my 2 points.
I mean, I guess, but like, I don't know. It's a trend that I feel like I'm seeing, and I'm just tired of it. So I don't know. I feel like the whole sympathetic villain thing almost started with Loki.
A lot.
So Loki, finds out the frost giant, gets bitter and angry, and goes off the rails, yada yada yada. And then there's that whole he can be redeemed arc that is going on through like most Thor movies that I got really tired of. Oh, and Avengers, of course. That I got really tired of really quick. Yeah. But
yeah, I think it's just Marvel being reactionary. They kept making Ronins and they kept making characters like that, and people just kept complaining. So I think they're trying something different, but I think they're beating it a bit to death. I don't think it's as overblown as some people say it is, but that's the same thing. I don't feel like it's an agenda or something. I think it's just trying to learn from Ronin and Guardians 1, but not doing. But the problem is they're both still. It doesn't matter if it's sympathetic or not. If the villain's poorly written, they're poorly written.
Well, yeah, but you know who I think I would go as far to say this is the best villain in the MCU. Who is not sympathetic whatsoever, and I think that's what makes them such a good villain. You know what I'm talking about here?
No need to tell me.
Green Goblin. Now, technically, he's not MCU, but he also
I would say that doesn't count because he's like guest starring in No Way Home, and he's not an original creation. I don't know. I guess MCU is not an original creation, but still.
I'll put it like this: he's the main villain of the movie.
That's true.
Therefore, actually, I mean, from a certain perspective, though, Spider-Man's the main villain of that movie. I just thought of that right now.
Oh boy.
Because if you sit and think about it, he's the one that screws everything up to begin with.
He causes most of the problems in the movie.
Yeah, he does. But anyways, I digress. That's not what we're talking about here. But he's just this evil chaos machine, for lack of a better term. And the fact that... So, I kind of look at it like this. I think a lot of people might see the similarity, too. Green Goblin is the Joker to Spider-Man, if that makes sense. Because they both serve the same purpose. They are just crazy and deranged, and they are going to push the heroes to their breaking points. And I love that, because I love both those characters for that very reason. Plus, their aesthetic is really cool. I like both of the characters. Anyways, but yes, so that's awesome. What other good villains have we seen? Not specifically Marvel, I'm thinking, that are not sympathetic, specifically.
We already said the High Evolutionary, but he was legitimately one of my favorite villains in a very long time, but won't talk about Guardians too much.
Yeah, he was good. Well, the Guardians, I kind of see those three movies as their own different thing, because James Gunn wrote and directed all three of them, and so they're very cohesive, and that's fantastic. Again, I don't want to get too much into that, but I sort of cut those movies as a little bit different from the broader MCU. But what other villains? I'm trying to think. Zemo, they tried to make him sympathetic, and I don't think that was very good.
That's fair, but I really like him in Civil War and Falcon Winter Soldier. So
I like him in Falcon and Winter Soldier. In Civil War, I was tired.
I don't blame you. He's not really important. I don't blame. He's not very necessary in Civil War.
Well, I would debate the opposite. He's incredibly necessary.
Oh, right. I appreciate that.
Not fun.
I can understand.
He's just kind of boring. I don't know. He's just like a normal dude in that movie too. It's like he doesn't flex his.
Black Panther is the villain for the first half of Civil War, but that's what makes him pretty cool. Well, after Zemo does half his stuff, then Black Panther's the villain.
Civil War is a whole.
They teams up with Iron Man, the other villain, which is very poetic.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it like that, then...
I guess at this point it's antagonist, not villain, but...
Yes, okay. Because I was going to say, if you're viewing it as Iron Man is the villain of Civil War, then yes, I would agree with that. Anyways...
But yeah, I'd say antagonist.
We're getting off track again.
Yes.
But, yeah, either way, I'm going to just reel this conversation back in, because we went on a bit of a rabbit trail. Yeah, I'm tired of sympathetic villains. I think they tried to make Namor sympathetic, and I was tired of that. If they would have done something different with him... Well, let me put it like this. You brought up a good point where, in terms of like Namor should be a sympathetic, I can't talk, sympathetic character. Yes, I think that makes sense. However, if they wouldn't try to make every single villain a sympathetic character, then maybe I wouldn't be bored with how they treated Namor. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's a fair take because I agree. I think it's, especially a lot of the MCU is this. I think it's just an oversaturation of a single idea, and every phase has this, where every phase pendulums from one idea to the other, then back.
Yeah,
I think we're just stuck in that right now. Maybe we'll escape it soon.
Even Killmonger was supposed to be a sympathetic villain because his dad died and was killed and yada yada yada, all this stuff, and he had such a rough upbringing and yada yada yada. So like, there's that. Also, like even Thanos. Okay, Like, in the comics, Thanos' motivation is he literally just wants the love of his life, which is the personification of death, to like him. So he decides to try to kill half the universe to get her attention. Okay? Like, that's pretty deranged. And I think that's what makes the villain so interesting. Because, so like, you know how everyone's obsessed with like serial killers and podcasts about that and documentaries and things like that, right? I think the reason people are interested in that is because those people are so deranged, and you think to yourself, because I enjoy that stuff from time to time too. So when I'm experiencing that stuff, when I'm watching it, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, what causes this person to act so deranged, and why? There's so many why questions about that. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Yada yada yada. And it's not so much that I want to feel sympathetic. It's that I want to think, okay, how did this happen? What perfect storm created this terrible individual? And it's not that I show sympathy toward those people at all. So even if they broke into the backstory of... Well, let me put it like this. Villains, when they're talking about sympathetic villains, right? They all have to show how they've been wronged and a victim in some kind of way. Whereas, if you look at serial killers, okay, for a lot of cases, yes, somewhere, usually in childhood, that happened, and that affected them for the rest of their lives. But not every serial killer has gone through that. So, like, I don't know what you know about Jeffrey Dahmer, okay? Jeffrey Dahmer, as far as anyone's aware of, he had a pretty good upbringing. His parents were divorced. I guess there were screws loose. We don't entirely know. Something was whack. Which is kind of crazy to think about. But also, I think there is just evil out there in the world. And so I don't think all evil needs to be explained, because I don't think all evil can be explained. Get what I'm saying? So I guess that kind of ties into a actually really deep morality thing. But for me, moral of the story is I don't need to have this sympathetic caring for my villains. I think just villains that are just pure evil, like this is a representative of evil, are good enough. So anyways.
So yeah, I think you're not wrong for hating, as I mentioned earlier, the pendulum overcorrecting too hard in this direction. Yeah, I think it's just a writing problem. We said we could go all day about good villains that are super evil and good villains that are sympathetic. So I think if we just had better writing, we would not be tired of all these sympathetic villains. Because I think half of them are not written well. They're just bad, and then they have a sympathetic backstory slapped onto it to try to make it better, and then that just ends up making it worse and damages good sympathetic villains by doing that. But I've said too much on this topic. We can move on.
I actually have one more thought I want to say on sympathetic villains. Again, we're on a tangent, but I enjoy where this conversation is going, so I'm going to talk about it. The movie Joker. Have you seen Joker?
No.
Okay. So, Joker, okay? One of the things I think is so great about the movie is it shows you the downfall and the decline of the main character Arthur Fleck, who becomes the Joker, okay? But it does it in such a way where by the point that he makes his final Joker transformation, he is so far gone that you don't really feel sympathy for him, and he just kind of makes this transformation like, I'm evil now, which is similar. Now, of course, the stories from the comics, like Under the Red Hood, are completely different, but in Under the Red Hood, they kind of do the same thing, where they tell an origin story of the Joker, where he's really sympathetic, a lot of bad things happen to him. However, by the time he makes his Joker transformation, he is so far gone that basically none of that matters, and now he's just this, as Heath Ledger's Joker put it, agent of chaos. And that, in my opinion, is far more interesting and compelling than villains like Loki, where they're trying to redeem him all the time and yada, yada, yada. It just seems so, like, I don't know, teeny bopper, like, I don't know. It doesn't feel very sophisticated, if that makes sense.
I think that's a good point, where villains can have depth and nuance to them, but without having to make them sympathetic or whatever the word is we keep
Yes.
using, where they look like they might be swayed to the good. Might be redeemable, I guess is the word we're looking for.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing in a villain, but I think it's a bad thing when you do it all the time.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I didn't really care about how they did it with Loki. I keep going to Loki for some reason. In the MCU, I'd probably have less of an issue with it, though, if they didn't try to make all of the villains, give them all these sympathetic sob stories and, oh, I'm a victim of yada, 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 this or that. You can still be a victim, but still also be so far gone that no one views you as a victim.
Yeah, I can't get us too off topic, but I do want to say I can sympathize with your points with Loki, but I do think Loki's more interesting in the movies he's in, where he's not the main villain. Kind of like in Thor: The Dark World, I hate to say it, but even the Loki show, and even Thor: Ragnarok and Infinity War.
Yeah. Well,
so
Loki,
as great as he is in Avengers, I think he rocks a bit more in the other movies because he's got a bit more depth to him.
And maybe the Loki show was pretty decent. But yeah, I mean, but I didn't like it because of Loki. I liked it because of everything else, honestly.
That's a fair point because everyone talks about it's the Loki show, and he's not very important to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
It's more of the TVA show.
I know. It could have been any random character plucked out of the MCU, honestly. And they could have just written around it however they wanted to do it. But anyways, that's not the point. Point is sympathetic villains. Lame. Wasn't a fan of Namor. But I think it's a great way to transition into... We were talking about Killmonger a little bit, and he makes a cameo in this movie. I think the Killmonger cameo was actually really, really good.
Yes, really liked it.
Yes, but not so much because I liked the character and liked seeing him back. And I did know ahead of time that was going to happen.
Oh.
However, I was still liked that because of, I mentioned earlier too with Shuri's character arc and how it represented the path that she was going down. And it kind of served as a warning, but also showing her what she actually wanted, which I guess in a way was the warning. So that was pretty cool. I like how they handled that. Again, I just think the whole thing just made it very interesting.
Yeah, I like this cameo a lot. It may not have been super necessary, but especially with how beloved he was in the first movie, I really like that they brought him back and not in a too forced way.
Yeah,
appreciate he's not brought back from the dead. It's a nice change of pace where he just his soul shows up in a dream or whatever.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yes, it was very good.
And it ties in with the movie surprisingly well, which I appreciate.
Yeah. But anyways, what other aspects of the movie do you want to touch on?
Any more thoughts on Namor, or should I give some thoughts on Namor?
I have no more thoughts on Namor.
All right. I liked Namor a lot. I think he's a great foil to Killmonger, because Killmonger starts Black Panther 1, and he's like, hey, you're super isolationist, that's bad. If you did more things, that'd be cool. And I like how the plot of the movie is Namor shows up, and he says, you're not isolationist enough. If you are more isolationist, things would be better off for you. So I feel like it's very reflective of life, where you have to account a balance of two ways. So I like that aspect of him, where he tells them they should be more isolationist. So Namor is actually very high on my evil Superman tier. Doesn't have backstory's not very similar to Superman, but all of his fight scenes are shot way too much like Superman. Like when he grabs the tail of a helicopter and swings it around. When M'Baku takes a stick and smashes him with it, and it just shatters into a billion pieces. And a dozen other things he does has a lot of Superman imagery. I have no idea how intentional it is, but yeah, so I'm adding him to the collective list of evil Superman, and he ranks pretty high.
Interesting.
Because the fact that he's not, because the fact that he just takes some of the imagery with that without doing the tropes that have been beaten to death by a billion other products, but I won't get into that now.
Fascinating.
Yeah, like that aspect of Killmonger. Trying to think of what else. It's definitely like one. I don't know. Power level wise, he feels like one of the scariest ones because he can go underwater and swim. But then if you get him out of the water, he can fly, and he has like Superman strength. Probably not as strong as Superman, but pretty strong.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a miracle in the movie that they beat him because he's just super tough. Where just because anytime they're fighting in the water, he just flies out of the water. He attacks the helicopter. He does a bunch of other things in the movie. He attacks Riri Williams at the end of the movie when she's 60 feet up above all of them, just shooting them. He just flies up and impales her.
Yeah.
Or he tries to impale her, and I think he fails. So I'm like, so yeah, pretty terrifying.
Makes sense pretty good. I never really looked at it quite that way, but yeah.
I think he's a better evil Superman than Icarus is in Eternals, but I also think Icarus is awful. But
yeah, that was not handled well.
But I'm not going to talk about Eternals
when
right
I think
now.
of Namor all the time, I always think of one thing specifically. If you ever been in Florida, Universal Islands of Adventure, because that's where they have the Marvel stuff. In the Marvel area, the bathrooms have Namor right above them, the restrooms.
I did not know that.
I don't know why, but we brought we packed lunch and brought it into the park, and so park it's busy and stuff. The only place we could find to sit was across from the restrooms. I was just sitting there eating my lunch, looking at Namor above the restroom sign the whole time.
That's so weird now I have to think about that.
I know, but I couldn't help but think about that the entire time during the movie. Has nothing to do with the movie and the quality of the movie. It's just in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So anyways, you got any other...
I think that's all my thoughts on Namor, but I really liked him overall.
Yeah. Well, any other thoughts of the movie you want to bring up?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Oh, I guess on the topic of Namor, I'll bring this up. So, I guess this would be my one small change for the movie, but they go and they take that giant boat at the end of the movie, and they go... they fight everyone. They have the nice sonar device that keeps the orcas and the other terrifying creatures away. Mm-hmm. But they still get swarmed by what looks like... it's probably not thousands, but it feels like thousands of Talocom people.
Mm-hmm.
They get swarmed. They lure Namor out. They get him into the microwave. They burn him up.
Yes.
So they do that, and I thought, okay, this is the part of the movie where they go, okay, and they specifically, Sherry specifically calls someone on the boat and says, "We've captured Namor. We don't need to fight anymore. Just move the boat away." Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, this is the part of the movie where it turns into like the helicarrier from Avengers, where it's going to fly up into the air and fly away so that we don't have to deal with this anymore. But, and I hate saying that because it's super cliche, where we have a billion battles in the sky now, like in Age of Ultron, and Black Widow ends this way, but I know you haven't seen it. And a billion other movies end that way, so I know it's terribly cliche now. I can't believe they tell them to go away, and they just drive the boat away, and they don't think anything wacky or uncharacteristic will happen. But then the strongest member of Namor's army throws a billion water bombs at their sonar device. And then all the people can come in closer now, and all the orcas and other terrifying water animals show up. And then they're all killed except for what's like a dozen of them left on the boat, and they're completely surrounded. So,
I mean, it was almost.
So I'm like, this plane. Yeah, it's it was a suicide mission. I was just couldn't believe that they just brought again. This is where the Avengers are a regular group of people. I could excuse them having a boat, but Wakanda should have flying boat technology. They should have a boat that can turn into a helicarrier and just propel itself up into the air and fly away. So I felt like that would have been a more interesting set piece. They just fly up into the air. Probably. Also, just makes their hopes of surviving better because now no many people can fly now.
Yeah, definitely.
But once the strongest member of Namor's army too angry to let the sonar waves damage her, bombs them.
Yeah.
And they're just swarmed by hundreds of people, and it's a miracle 12 of them survive at the end.
Yeah, pretty much. Especially the characters with all the plot armor, so you know.
Yeah, especially it's just all the characters plot. So yeah, after my brother Jacob, he had the same thought during the movie, so I think this is a weird collective thought that just everyone is kind of watching this movie that the ship should have just doesn't have to rise in the air. It just should do something where they're fighting anymore. So it's just weird how that was never part of their plan. They thought the sonar device, the sound device, would work just fine.
It's just bad writing.
So yeah, it all works out in the end, so I don't think it's too bad. But my weirdest complaint about the movie, even though it's not that big of a deal, I just can't believe them. It felt like so obvious. I was surprised the movie didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, here's something funny, I think, kind of on a similar topic, on a similar note. The blue people who were underwater and stuff, for some reason, this thought came into my mind that, just for a split second, and then I kept thinking about it, so I thought it was hilarious. This movie could have been called Black Panther: Way of the Water.
Oh boy. Just wondering when we get an Avatar reference. I know it'd been beamed to death, so I was trying not to do it, but I still have not seen Avatar 2, so I can't make too many references.
I haven't seen either Avatars, nor do I have any desire to see either.
I don't blame you. The first one is very... I hear it's good in a theater, but I just watched it on my computer, and that was kind of a mistake. It was...
Yeah.
Doesn't look as cool.
Definitely. But no, the blue people, I just... Especially, I don't know. Because they're associated with water, I immediately thought of Avatar for some reason. That popped in my head.
Yeah.
And I forgot the name of the movie, was titled Wakanda Forever because Avatar 2 also came out last year. And so I guess both of them were equally...
Yeah, they came out within a month of each other, which is... they're both owned by Disney, so it's not a big deal, but it was still surprising that their two water-themed movies were a month away from each other. Mm-hmm. Black Panther was November or something, and that movie was December.
Kind of made me want to go get in the pool, which the time of year is coming up, if it's not here already anyways. But yes. So any other thoughts you want to bring up?
I'm trying to think of other thoughts. Don't want to talk about the UN too much, but I have to talk about, France sends soldiers to go, or mercenaries or whatever. Then, talk about other thing that exists in the MCU. The United Nations is kind of cringe. That might exist in real life, I don't know enough, but... Because especially after watching the first movie, I couldn't believe this, where T'Challa goes and gives a big speech about how we're super isolationist, and we're going to make changes to do that. And the first question one of the other people ask, I don't remember if it says what country he's from, he's just like, how does that benefit us? And I'm like, dude, he's doing something his country has never done before for like thousands of years. And your first question is, what can I get out of it?
Well, that's consistent.
So it fits with the movies where all the countries are really selfish. So
yeah.
But then the second movie opens up with France sending mercenaries to go and steal vibranium. Mm-hmm. And I thought, when I watched Wakanda Forever, I thought Queen Ramonda's speech was kind of mean. But then after watching the first movie, I feel like she's pretty justified, where she's like, hey, none of you are getting vibranium because all of you are really selfish and bad. And she's right.
Yeah.
The United Nations is kind of selfish in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. At least it's consistent across both movies, how the UN acts.
I'm sure they do something bad in Falcon the Winter Soldier, too. I just can't think of it.
Probably. Well, here's the Falcon the Winter Soldier. I talk about this concept of white bread being dull and boring.
Oh, boy.
That series was, like, episode 1 and the last episode were really good.
It's kind of the most MCU TV show, but in a bad way.
Yes, the middle was just
has
like
all the tropes, but none of the good stuff.
Yeah. Which is a shame. But yes. Anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else you want to bring up?
I might go through notes quickly.
Okay.
So I guess the other weird part that I'll say So yeah, I just like talk about the UN. I like talk about France because every time there's weird political implications in the MCU, it fascinates me about how intentional it is and whether it'll carry over to other movies. So yeah, the other one is the United States finding out that Wakanda's in the United States, and they think they kidnapped Riri Williams, which is pretty justifiable from their knowledge because they showed up at her college and took her. Mm-hmm. But it's still crazy. I guess the FBI's there, but they still send the local Massachusetts police, which is nuts. And they have a shootout, and that part of the movie is also nuts. That our characters just have a shootout with the police.
Yeah,
we just kind of run away from them, and it works out surprisingly well.
I mean, they do kidnap somebody.
Riri Williams shoots their drone down and probably has a body count at this point. That drone probably killed half those people.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah, kind of weird part of the movie where Namor's like, go find the scientist and kill her. Weird that he's asking them to do it, then he kind of blackmails them. That's kind of weird. Mm-hmm. And then he's either just very efficient or something, but then they show up at the bridge and he shows up immediately and he's just ready to execute her. He tells them to blow on the magic conch shell from SpongeBob whenever they find her, but then they don't because he's just stalking them or something. Well, so he shows up at the bridge and he's ready to kill her.
The conch shell never even shows up for the rest of the... You'd think
it's so weird.
Like a Chekhov's gun type of situation.
Yeah, watching it the second time, I did not remember the magic conch shell because it's so unnecessary.
Yeah. I would have forgotten about it if you wouldn't have brought it back up there.
So again, small nitpick, but I just want to mention that he shows up at the bridge, he executes half the police, and they think Wakanda did it. Wakanda probably killed half those police, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then he gets ready to take Riri Williams, but then we manage to spare her.
Yeah. But, no, like, those government people or whatever, like, they literally, that whole plot does literally nothing. All that happens is it has Martin Freeman's character, whose name I keep forgetting.
Oh, yeah.
Get arrested, and then they break him out.
It sounds way too similar to another existing character.
Why didn't you just not arrest him and erase that whole plot to begin with?
Oh, yeah, he's Everett Ross because I always want to think he's
General Thaddeus
General the General
Red
Ross.
Hulk.
Yeah, Red Hulk.
Which we're probably
they usually just call him General Ross. In this one, he's called like Captain Ross or whatever his rank is. I have no idea.
Yeah, which is really confusing.
Or Agent Ross, I don't know.
And they don't look
super distracting.
They don't look a single thing alike.
Yeah.
which is weird. But yeah. So, anyways, I'm gonna keep asking if you have any more thoughts because
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll
other
comment
nitpick
on
about the
stuff.
shootout. Once again, they're royalty from another country. It's so weird that like they couldn't send a middleman or something to talk with them. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea if royalty from Africa came to the United States, abducted some from college. I don't know what the protocols for that would be, but sending the FBI and having a shootout with them doesn't feel like the protocols. Let's check notes.
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
all the weird government relations in this
Yeah.
movie is fascinating.
I've said everything I can think of right now, so I'm gonna
Alright.
keep going to you if you want to bring up stuff, and I'll.
Yeah, I wrote a short
throw in
list
my
of
2
notes.
cents.
I tried not to.
I wing most of these
This
episodes.
has been said to death, but I'll say it anyway. I didn't notice it my first time watching the movie, but my brother Jacob did. Where do you remember the line where Sherry has her AI and Queen Ramon just says you shouldn't trust that AI. What if it becomes evil and tries to take over the world? Do you remember what Sherry's reply
remember
is?
that. I don't remember her reply, but I remember that line.
But yeah, she replies, it only goes bad in the movies, which, if this was its own movie, would be fine, but she lives in a universe where Age of Ultron happened, where a AI turned evil and destroyed an entire country.
That is true.
So, it's been beaten to death. You've probably heard that joke before. I'm going to say it again anyway, in case you had it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to write that down.
Yeah. One like Terminator, I think. Did Terminator do that with AI? I can't remember.
I can't remember. I haven't seen
I
Terminator.
heard that apparently I haven't either, but I heard apparently James Cameron's working on another Terminator movie. And that's going to be the central focus. No, but that's going to be so they're adapting a new premise into it, which is the whole AI thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like if they're doing Terminator. From what I heard, the whole what's the main character's name? Connor's the last name. Is it Sarah Connor? I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't know anything about
Anyways,
Terminator.
From what I've heard, I haven't watched any of them. From what I've heard, that's been beat to death. So I think it'd be good for the franchise if they either like they pick it up with different characters. I don't know how they look at that, but they make a new Skynet premise and throwing AI in there somewhere, following a different group of characters, and then however they go about that might be good for the franchise.
All right, other note, Okoye and someone else in the movie who I don't remember. I'm bad I don't remember. Or they get a blue outfit at the end of the movie. Do you remember what that outfit's called?
No.
It's called the Midnight Angel, I believe, so I think it's from the comics.
Okay.
So, gotta talk about don't really like it. So,
Okay.
first off, the suit's kind of ugly, but that's subjective. But second thing, it's super weird. Don't really like when characters get different costumes and different nicknames halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of just gone by Okoye. Her signature weapon is a spear. She wears the red.
Mm-hmm.
She has a thing. I don't know why.
Yeah.
We're changing that. And again, but then she doesn't become the Midnight Angel. She becomes a Midnight Angel. There's 2 of them, which I think is also super weird.
Yeah.
Be like an Iron Man 2 if Tony gave a suit to Rhodey and a second person, and they looked identical, and he called them the War Machines.
Well, okay.
And then the end of the movie has both of them show up, and they go, look, it's the War Machines.
Well, but okay. So here's the thing I have though. I don't necessarily know. I'm going to defend, play devil's advocate here.
That's
I don't
fine.
necessarily know that that's the case. I think it could possibly be that those are what the suits are called, and that Okoye and whoever the other I forget her name, those 2 are not going to wear them all the time.
That's fair.
So it's like this person in the Midnight Angel suit, that person in the Midnight Angel suit. I don't think that's going to be like a new code name.
Maybe.
Because if you think of like War Machine and how that played out in Iron Man 2, what happened was that was the term that I think Justin Hammer coined, calling him War Machine. And it was kind of just that from then on because he didn't have an alter
Like
ego
Hollywood
at that
MCU
point.
movies, the villains give our heroes their name, like the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, continue.
Oh, the best example of villains giving superheroes names is the media calling him Iron Man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Thanks for that joke.
Yeah, that's the best one.
Does the media do anything cringe in that movie? They probably do. I just can't remember it.
The media does cringe stuff all the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that movie specifically.
Yeah.
They do just badger him about whether he's the Iron Man or not, but he does cave in at the end.
Well, they don't really. They only badger him at the end.
That
really.
is true.
That's
Yeah,
the
only
only
at the
time
end
they
of the
do
movie,
that.
but
And then he says,
not caught up enough on Iron
Yeah.
Man for weird, thought-provoking questions, but thanks for that joke.
Yeah, I've watched the Iron Man trilogy so many times because, like, growing up, those are my favorite 3.
Yes, maybe that's what they'll do. This strikes me as something this movie will do only, then forget in the next movie. Never forget how the end of Black Panther, they call Bucky the White Wolf, and they get him a new costume. They look like it's going to set something up, but then they don't commit to it. Then he literally gets a show around him where they call him the Winter Soldier, which is his terrorist name.
Well, but
I don't think they ever call that, and they'll never call him that in the show. I don't think, other than to refer to him when he was a terrorist. The
Winter Soldier though is such a cooler name though.
I absolutely agree. So I think,
like the White Wolf.
Granted, if they named it Falcon and the White Wolf, I think everyone would be confused because the White Wolf handle was so badly used.
Well, but that almost sounds like it's like a Native American Indian type of thing. I feel like if they were to call it that,
that's part of it. What is in the comics? Just the comics is it's not Native American. It's Africa, but it's a story about someone from somewhere in Europe ends up in Wakanda, and they call him the White Wolf, and he gets a White Wolf motif. And then Bucky follows that in a bit where he moves to Wakanda at the end of Civil War, so they give him that name because he serves as a composite character for that.
Yeah.
But then they don't commit to it. I think they might call him that in Infinity War. I have no idea.
I don't think anyone actually calls him that. Except
it was in all the marketing, which that's the only reason why I'm so caught up on it. It was in all the marketing. We're like, he's the White Wolf now. But he doesn't even get a cool wolf motif like White Wolf in the comics does.
Yeah.
And then they just caved in Falcon the Winter Soldier show, which I think was the right choice, but a bit disappointing.
Yeah, but anyways.
Many more notes. I don't think there's too much else.
Okay.
So I want to talk about... I think we'll give a thought on the mid-credit scene. It's a good way to close it out, so... I think it's kind of fine overall. I don't have strong opinions either way. I appreciate where the Black Panther character can have a legacy in his son. But I guess it's a problem the MCU and MCU fans have in general, where I look at it and I saw it as a sense of finality. I'm like, okay, we get a nice tribute to the character, and he gets to have a legacy. We move on. And then you go to the internet, and every internet article is about how he's going to get aged up for Kang Dynasty, and he'll become the new Black Panther. And I have no idea if this is the internet just being speculative again, or if this is actually the plan, and I'm just very oblivious.
I don't know. I'm quite honest.
So I don't know. If I'm being maybe I'm wrong, and this is just a cynical way to introduce a new character.
Well, my thing is, regardless of what they do, they're gonna make T'Challa's son, who's also named T'Challa, but not T'Challa Jr., which I think is what they should name him. He's gonna become
T'Challa Jr. Gonna cry.
Wow. It's obvious, it's apparent he's going to become the new Black Panther somewhere down the line. Not sure when or where. So like I know it's going to happen, and when it happens, you're going to be like, okay, that's neat. And then just move on and not think too much about it. I hate when they age up characters for dumb reasons.
No, blame you. We kind of did this in Endgame with Cassie Lang, and then we follow into that in Quantumania.
Might I point something else out? Now, I haven't seen Quantumania yet. I need to. But something does not line up, because if she was... How old
the MCU math... Someone did the math, and her age is wrong, because the MCU
wrong.
The MCU timeline is super messed up, because the movies take place in, 2026 now.
Yeah, something like that. But, because here's the weird thing. So, when we last saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp, we saw Cassie still as a kid. She was only 7 or 8, I think.
I think she's supposed to be older. She's 7 or 8 in the first Ant-Man. Then by Ant-Man and the Wasp, at least 5 years have passed. So she's supposed to be 12 years old.
I thought she was
now.
6 though. In the first.
She might have been 6, but anyway, that should be 11 by Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then she's supposed to be, if you had another 5 years, that puts her at about
16.
About 16 or so, which is where we're at. So the math is somewhat consistent, but it's still a bit weird.
I think it's...
But yeah, they specifically say her age in Quantumania, and someone on the internet said the math's done incorrectly.
I heard in some type of promotional, Paul Rudd was talking about how Cassie's a young adult now, and I'm like, that doesn't sound...
No, I'm fairly certain she's still in high school.
Okay, because I don't know. Either way, it...
Because I think she's in high school in the movie, which I won't talk about too much, but I think she's a junior or senior.
I could almost swear that she's a lot younger in... The first, I want to say she's 6 or something like that.
Yeah, she's she's 6, but 10 years in universe passed between then and Quantumania.
Hold on,
so.
I think it was only because how long was he in house arrest? Because it wasn't long after the first Ant-Man that Civil War happened.
I guess that's true.
So it would have been within a year, I would say. So I don't remember, because I've only seen Ant-Man and the Wasp once.
Just like me.
Yeah, it was fine. I don't think it was a bad movie.
Just,
but
I also say
I just
that.
don't really have any rewatchability desire, I guess.
Yeah, I feel bad.
So I forget how long it was. I thought it was only like 2 years or so.
I think it's close. I think Ant-Man and Infinity War is closer to about 5 years, but I could be wrong. Let's pull up a...
Because I don't.
I'm not gonna pull up a
exactly.
timeline. I'm just gonna pull up the release dates, but I know the problem was that everyone kept saying the math was done on the release dates, not based off of the in-universe.
Mm-hmm.
So the other scene everyone makes fun of is in Vision, in Civil War. Vision says this many years ago, Tony Stark became Iron Man, and that's true if you count when the Iron Man movie came out and when Civil War came out. But all these people kept saying, if you do the timeline, Iron Man 2 takes place like 1 year after Iron Man 1, even though it came out multiple years later. Then if you follow that, Civil War is technically 2 years in the past.
Yeah. Well, but hold on. Have you remember the beginning of Spider-Man Homecoming? Because that screws up the timeline too, because it says, I think 8 years later after the Battle for New York. And that
that's another one.
That happened in 2012, which would put it already in 2020. And I'm like, well, that's not right. Because the movie came out in 2017.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's really confusing.
Okay, Ant-Man's 2015, Infinity War's 2018, so that's 3 to 4 years. So not quite 5 years, but still possible that this could happen. So if she's 6, then if she's 3 to 4 years, then that means she's either 9 or 10. Plus 5 only puts her at 15. Well, she looked way older than 15 in Infinity War. Yeah, you're right. She's supposed to be like...
Not Infinity War.
She's supposed to be like somewhere between 17 and 18 in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, either way, I don't think
the MCU.
It definitely doesn't line up.
5 years later, seeing this epic and Endgame, but it's come at such a great cost.
Yes.
Perpetual future.
But anyways, I know we're getting off topic again here. Got any other notes?
So, I have to share another thought. My brother Jacob, he says, T'Challa Jr. is going to become a villain. He has the exact same backstory as Killmonger. He's being raised in a ridiculously poor part of the world when he's royalty. He's going to grow resentful of that. He's going to be mad that they're not using vibranium to solve all their poverty. He has the same backstory. It's going to happen.
Okay, I don't think he's going to become a villain, but
Alas.
I'm glad you pointed that out because I'm sure that they are going to use that backstory in some regard like that, in some way, shape, or form.
So yeah, it's a super oversimplification. It's just a joke, but I think it's hilarious because I didn't know Story pointed out. It's like, same backstory.
I'm
person who's royalty, who's hidden in poverty.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident they're going to use that, what's it called? The mirrors of their origin stories in some way, shape, or form, because that's a really good point. But yeah, I'd be hard pressed to think it's going to be a villain. Why would they bring in T'Challa Jr. only for him to come back and be
I don't think he'll become a villain. It's just hilarious that he's so similar to Killmonger, but it's portrayed in a good light.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess other thoughts that we can't talk about too much, but back to MCU fans being bad. Probably been happening for a long time, but main examples I can think of are Endgame, where Tony Stark has a child, and again, that seems like it's supposed to be part of the plot or part of his character, but every article is, she's going to be aged up and she's going to fight Kang, she's going to become Iron Man. Once again, I don't think that's the point of the movie. And then Harvey, or whatever his name is from Iron Man 3, shows up at the funeral. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to become Iron Man, he's going to fight Kang.
No one's going to become Iron Man.
Again.
That's what I firmly believe. Iron Man is gone.
Yeah, Riri Williams becomes Ironheart, but that's about it.
But Ironheart is still an Iron Man.
Any strong opinions on the Ironheart suit in the movie?
The CGI is bad. That's the only
fair.
opinion I have.
Do you want to share them? Also, do you want to share them? The suit, the CGI on the suit's bad. Definitely think this is the better looking Phase 4 movie, but I know that's not a hard competition. Mm-hmm. Its only competition is really Shang-Chi, because all the other movies and TV shows kind of... And Spider-Man, I meant to say. So
yeah,
those are the main ones that have what I call the standard quality. Everything else dips into the below average, which is a pity.
Well, here's kind of what I noticed. I feel like I noticed this whole bad CGI trend long before everyone else did. Because if you compare the first Iron Man movie to even Iron Man 3 and look at the CGI... The first Iron Man CGI is streets ahead of Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I know they're very proud of Iron Man 1, where it's so many practical effects and CGI is used super sparingly. So when they did use it, they could make it much better, thanks to...
But if you think of that whole scene where they... What's what I'm looking for? There's that iconic scene where he's in third world country or whatever, and you're blowing stuff up and stuff. That's almost entirely CGI, and that CGI is amazing in that scene.
Yeah, because it's been 5 years since I rewatched Iron Man 1, but when I rewatched, I was very impressed.
Yeah, but also, even not looking in the MCU, Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Davy Jones' CGI is amazing, okay? And that was...
It's pretty great.
I think all of that predates the MCU by, like, at least a year or two, I think. And then you look and see... And it's not just the MCU, but the MCU, I think, is, like, where people are starting to notice it. But I don't know, I guess just CGI is just getting worse and worse.
There's lots of politics that go into this that we won't discuss here, but
I
appreciate that.
We won't get into that big thing.
But
the CGI in this movie...
I think it's much... To me, I think I just really support this movie, because to me, this was just a breath of fresh air compared to everything else in Phase 4. So I can see why you disagree with that, but
the MCU,
it felt like it fixed a bunch of problems other movies had.
Yeah, the MCU in my mind is just really stale at this point.
That's very fair.
And I think, I mean, I don't consider it a breath of fresh air, per se. But, like, I'll use this. I talk about how much I like Multiverse of Madness. The reason I like Multiverse of Madness is because it does something different, okay?
I agree with that.
It really breaks the mold of what you come to expect from an MCU movie. Especially because the marketing of the movie, at least in my opinion, did not lead me to believe that Scarlet Witch was going to be the villain.
Yeah.
And I also was kind of caught off guard with how good of a villain she was. And how the movie was actually kind of scary at some points, which I appreciated, because the MCU has never tried to do that stuff before. So they did some new stuff, and they did it well, regardless of what you think of the movie. I enjoyed the effort that was put into it to make it different and stand out. But yeah, so anyways,
I've been watching a lot less movie trailers because I think movies are kind of more interesting when I don't watch the trailers, and Doctor Strange has definitely been the biggest.
Well, see, I don't watch clips, but I'll watch all the trailers.
I only watch trailers in movie theaters now, so I don't ever go and hunt them online or anything.
Yeah, but anyways, any other final thoughts before we get into the ranking?
I don't think so. I've said everything I want to say, but just like movie overall. Yeah, so I like it a lot more than the first Black Panther, which I'm very mixed on. So that's just my final thoughts.
And I agree with that. I'll say that too. But I still don't think this movie was that great in my opinion.
That's fair.
So scale from 1 to 10. This is the first review we've done in a while. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being the greatest movie you've ever seen. Where would you rank this movie?
I've definitely thought about this because ever since my first, you asked me to co-host, I knew you were going to ask me. Yep. So I've been thinking very hard. So I think I've settled on 8 out of 10, which is, but you probably think that's too generous, but I'm going to say it where.
Probably. Well, here's what I thought of, and this will make it a really clean when we post the review ranking. I'd give it a 6. Because, in my opinion, I didn't like it enough to consider it good, but I liked enough about it to make it not be bad, if that makes sense. Which means if we're going to average that out, meet in the middle, we're at a 7.
Yeah, I can be content with that, so I'll stick with my score.
I think that is great. So, alrighty. Well, any final thoughts then, Caleb, before I know we just did that. I know I just...
So, no more thoughts on the movie.
Okay, not a problem. Well, Caleb, thanks for joining us. Do you have any things you'd like to shout out? Social medias, YouTube?
Yeah, so yes, I have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's called Crazed Crow. I'm not very active on it, and I mostly just post memes. I don't do anything super sophisticated on it, but I'm hoping to possibly get into it more, but we'll see. So that's the main place to find me on YouTube.
Alrighty, fantastic. Well, Caleb, once again, thank you for joining us. This has been your Friendly Neighborhood Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at FriendlyNeighborPod. You can follow me on Twitter at boss_man_swope. The Spider-Man theme song was originally composed by Bob Harris and covered by Jacob Swope for this episode. The Friendly Neighborhood Podcast is a Lumberjack Media production. Thank you guys all for watching. God bless you, God bless America, and we'll catch you later.